What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Avenue A. Thanks for joining us again. This is episode number 4, which is really exciting. Happy Friday. It's nice to be here. I know I've had a long week, so for those of you joining us, thanks for sort of capping off your week here. First and foremost, I want to say happy Juneteenth, because today, June 19th, is a very underrepresented holiday that not a lot of people, I think, know about maybe. But Juneteenth, June 19th, is the celebration and commemoration of the official end of slavery in the United States in 1865. So that's very exciting. I know I didn't really learn about it in school. I wasn't really aware of it until recently, but today is Juneteenth, and so happy Juneteenth. It's very important to acknowledge and to celebrate. So with that being said, I have a very exciting guest on today. His name is Jameson Tabor. Now, Jameson and I kind of go way back. I've known him since I was in high school. I sang in a choir that he was the music director of, and we did shows together, and he was my vocal coach for many years. And so our relationship goes way back, and I'm really excited to have him on the show today. So a little bit about Jameson. Jameson is a pop recording artist, songwriter, and producer located in Los Angeles, California, but he's originally from Portland, Oregon. His dancey and blues-inspired music falls under the genre of dance pop, but more specifically what is called Bluestep. At a young age, Jameson honed his performance skills through an upbringing in the theater, with a dream of one day writing for and starring on Broadway. Love that. As a songwriter on 3 fully produced stage works, Jameson received national recognition for his musical theater compositions, and he's also been awarded for his skills in dance and choreography by the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival, also known as KCACTF. In 2015, Jameson made the big move to Los Angeles to pursue pop music more fully, and a year later, he produced and released his first original song, Pull Me In, followed by his debut blues pop fusion EP called Pursuit. And Jameson continues to collaborate, perform, and produce music with artists of many genres, both locally and internationally. So we're super excited. I am super excited to have him on today. So let's welcome Jameson to the show.
Hi, Kelsey.
Hi, Jameson. How's it going?
It's going great. It's really going great.
Thanks so much for joining me today. It's really an honor.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm really grateful for you being in my life. Still, obviously, after all these years, we've had such a great friendship. I appreciate your influence in my life, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. That really means a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited. I feel like I have some good questions that I'm excited to hear you answer. So let's just dive right in. The first thing I want to know is, how has networking changed for you since you moved from Portland to LA and from the theater world to the music industry?
I would say a lot of it is similar in that it's very simple, really. Networking is just getting to know people. It's being yourself. It's being able to kind of describe yourself to someone as well in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And grab their attention. But really, genuine relationships is always what networking is about. There's kind of a misconception sometimes that it's just like, you just have to surface level meet a bunch of different people, and a lot of people take like a shotgun approach to networking. Especially, I've seen that even at events here in LA that I've been to. A lot of people just like, they try to like shake as many people's hands and get to know as many people as they can. Yeah. And then they leave and they just have all these business cards and nothing happens, What I've seen, though, it's interesting because in a smaller community like Portland, there are a lot of people who I think you're a smaller pond, so it's easier to know
Yeah,
who to get to know, and then you really build a little bit more meaningful relationships with the people that you keep seeing at events, right? Um,
that's right. Because
but
it's a
I think,
smaller community.
yeah, and so
Yeah,
that has changed, and then but also like so moving to a big city, it's not like everybody is everybody's there to do something. They're very specifically here. A lot of transplants in LA, at least, and most people, I would say from my experience at networking events, have only been there for a year, maybe to
okay.
2 years. Sometimes people have been here longer, but most of the people are pretty new to the city still, and a lot of people end up still leaving after 2 years even. So,
Sure.
um, yeah, it's hard to know who to get to know.
Yeah,
I guess also everybody's very qualified. Everybody, you think at least everybody's pretty qualified. Um, so as far as building the genuine relationships with people, that's more difficult in LA. But the essence of it is still the same. You have to still find your people. And my experience has been that going to um, events is always great, obviously in person, but you can do a lot of the work in actually building real relationships with people online and through supporting them on Instagram, on Facebook, or wherever you are,
yeah,
and promoting their work, messaging them, talking to them genuinely, not like, hey, great job, like asking them deep questions. People really appreciate it. Making meaningful comments on their material that shows you actually watched, you actually cared, and you have to take the time to really do that. There's a tendency probably on social media not to have to do that. It's just an easy click and move on.
right.
But the people I have gotten to know the best that came originally from like networking events, most of them that are now my friends are all people I've really, really stayed in contact on social media. And that happens like the couple of days after events that you go to. I say
Sure.
events meaning like there's all sorts of different things that could be. It could just be going to somebody's show. For me, in the music industry um, versus the theater industry, like going to support people in the show, that's a huge deal too.
Right.
I think it's very important because everybody seems like they're always in a show when you're in theater. I mean, it seems like there's just always a show going on.
Yeah.
So you're always in rehearsals or whatever. But like if you show up to somebody's show, that really means a lot. And you say hi afterward and you talk to them, all of that.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest difference is just how you show up for people, sharing their work when it's released, talking about them, posting them on your page. If you are doing some sort of, like for me, I'm doing this weekly open mic night right now on my Instagram.
Nice.
And I'm reaching out to different friends of mine, artists, and make it open to everybody really if they want to perform on it. So it's kind of a good opportunity to highlight other people on your own page.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And especially now too, like now that we're all sort of everything has really moved online, from being in quarantine, it's even more important to sort of be present on social media. It's kind of the only way to really stay in touch with some of those friends or artists that you work with. There's no other way right now really, because there's no live shows happening and stuff like that. So the importance is even greater on social media, I think.
Mm-hmm. And you have to have a very clear kind of vision for what you intend. I think that's the other thing with networking. It's like you go to events, or if you're looking for people on social media, just meeting a bunch of people and making friends, like that's always good. But if you're really looking to make some progress with whatever your field is, you got to seek out people that are going to be like you, or people that you think you could learn something from, and have something in mind that you want to work on.
Can you give an example of that?
So, for instance, I knew I wanted to get my music in television shows, right? So I would talk to people a lot about that first off, and then I basically met somebody through talking about that enough to somebody else, and this wasn't even at a networking event, that he and I have now grown our relationship just by talking a lot on the phone, social media, catching up. But I guess knowing that I had that in mind, and I was able to get a lot of to get to where the point where I needed to be to meet him and know about myself enough. Even I had to ask all sorts of people about it, and ask how they've gone about it. Like, what emails did you send? Like, very specific questions
Yeah.
to friends of mine. Had conversations at like picnic benches outside in a park, but we're hanging out, but we're talking about how did you get your music on billboard.com,
Yeah.
So yeah, all sorts of great. I guess the goal is to have a specific question for people and a specific way that they can help you too.
Interesting. I like that. That definitely resonates. I'm wondering, how has a failure or maybe apparent failure set you up for a later success? And do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Okay. I think that I have for sure. Right. Well, like Exhibit A is right when I moved here. So we saved up a lot of money, we thought, to move. But the biggest, the biggest challenge was not saving up the money and deciding I'm going to move there. But it was actually, now we're here. I had no plan whatsoever for what type of work I would do to continue paying the bills, who I should meet or how or where to even start. I had nobody at all that I knew. And so I had no plan. I think that was the failure, was that I had really no plan except for just to get there, and there was no follow through after that. So yeah, I got to a point where I had like $28 in my bank account, and I was driving for Uber, and I also was applying for jobs at like hundreds of jobs at music industry, like labels, and none of which I was qualified for, just like I really had looking for like restaurant jobs, right, as much as I could, and nobody would like hire me, even give me an interview. I didn't have any interviews either.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that was a big challenge to figure out how am I even going to survive here after that. So then that set me up to really know how my finances were important as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aside from, and now I'm very careful with how I plan my finances, because really, as being a performer, an artist, right, of any sort, you are an entrepreneur, and you have to be conscious of the business side of things.
Yes.
It's less apparent when you're being hired and cast in someone else's show, for instance, right, than when you're writing it, you're making sure it's being produced, you're creating the music video and the album art and the lyric video, or you're in charge of all of that, and then you release it, and you have to get it to people. So I would say, I've had a lot of successes and failures when it comes to releasing music. I think it could be a success or a failure, depends how you look at it. And I've always feel like I fail, which is, interesting. It's one of those things you struggle with always as an entrepreneur and artist too, because you can be doing this and that. That's why you're doing it. It could be better.
Indeed. Yeah.
But specifically, when I released my first album, again, not really a plan in place for how, after the music was done, what was I going to do after that? How was I going to promote it? How was I really going to get people to listen to it? I spent so much time and money in producing the music and putting it together that the follow through portion, like of marketing the music, I just didn't even research really about. So yeah, then I got, a couple, I think I got a couple thousand plays, in the first month maybe, for all of the songs that I done, which is, I mean, it wasn't making any money back for sure. I wasn't
Sure.
really even gaining any ground in my following, but what I did gain as a success was, first off, I did it. Secondly, I
Hell
have
yeah.
all of this music that is now, my songs that I can go out and I can perform.
Yeah.
So I think that, and now, being able to remember how that felt to release something that you kind of like were hoping would be much more than what it was, just because you put it out. Yeah, I really, really value the follow through now, and do a lot of planning and a lot of reaching out to make sure that after this is done, people will be able to see it.
That's really smart. And I want to say that there is a lot to be said for just getting it out in the first place. You know what I mean? Like what you sort of mentioned, like just the fact that you got that first one out, even if, you were newer or you didn't have a plan or whatever, like I know that that's something that stops me a lot, is that sort of perfectionism, especially when it's like my own work.
Yeah.
And I can sort of control when it gets released and stuff like that. Then I'm just like, well, why would I release it before it's like literally perfect,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then also it's never like, there's always going to be something else that I'm wanting to do or some fear that's holding me back. So that's something that I have to challenge myself with too, is like, especially with my own content, like just to work on it until it's good and then just put it out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that when we are used to working in team environments and group environments too, it's much more easy to release something that isn't 100% perfect, because everybody kind of agrees, you know what, this is good. We're
Right.
at a good place with this, and there's a sort of a group energy about it. So if you're in a show, or even if you created something, like I've written musicals and put those on, and it's always in development, even up until the day that you're going, and now the show is open, and now you're still tweaking things and you're coaching people about it. But you opened the show because that's the date you said, and everybody agreed, yeah, I think we can get it to this place, and everybody says this is good, let's do it.
Right.
When it's just you, you're dealing with, you're the marketing person, you're the writer, you're the creative director. So it's,
I know it's a lot.
yeah, you can't really see that perspective as much, but yeah, it's good to have different friends of yours as well to build up and have a team, I would say, as well.
Yeah.
I think as far as what you're talking about, and just getting things out though, that's a huge thing. Yeah. People don't give themselves enough credit for taking the small steps, right? Because we all we see like the top of the pyramid, and we're like, wow, how can I ever get there, first off?
Yeah.
And we can easily just stop and sit on the side of the pyramid like, holy crap, I'm never gonna make it.
Right.
But when you just put your head down and you just take one step every single day, and then you're proud of every single step you take, you're setting your foot on good ground, you turn around and you've made it up halfway the pyramid already. You're like, wow, you're still not at the top yet, but
you're chugging along.
Yeah. And you make progress that way. The other way, you will stop and, stop yourself before it's supposed to be done. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. What piece of advice would you give an art student on their way into the real world industry? And then also, what advice should they ignore?
Okay. Yeah, art students. You're right. So I think people who create, we all have a deep passion for, finding ourselves, expressing ourselves, right? And that is so, so important. I think that's something you hone when you're in art school. And then you're like finally, I'm going to get to do my thing. Yes. So there can be a mistake in that you focus so much on yourself that the art becomes too I want to I don't want to say self-serving, but it just becomes a little bit less meaningful, because the way you can approach art is that it's an expression for everyone else too. I think to make it, as far as having a successful career in art, like there are different approaches to that, but my advice is always to, to stay true to you, while not being so obsessed with your own version of what you think is right, that you can't necessarily continue learning and growing, continue taking new ideas in, and continue listening to the world and what the world is around you, that describes, how you should be expressing it. So I think, yeah, for me, I felt like I was, I knew what I wanted to say in a way, and I had to put that down. And for a bit, I just didn't listen to any new music. I was just listening to just my stuff, and really critiquing and getting super fine-tuned on what is it that I want to create. I think that was important work to do. But when it comes to really making something for, when there's a reason the word is, you're releasing a song, you're releasing this new work, is because you're giving it away to the world, right?
Yeah.
It's not for you in the end. Ideally, you leave something behind that means something to a lot of people. So
I think that's really true in theater as well, like especially live performance, is that so much of the importance is the audience. You know what I mean? Like when I see live theater and I feel that the audience isn't being considered, and that maybe the actor is sort of doing their performance in sort of more of a self-serving way, and I'm in the audience, then I feel like, well, why would I want to watch this? Like if I'm not being included as an audience member, then like what's the point? Like, that actor is just having their time up on stage. But when I'm
I would agree. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I'm in the audience and I feel like the actors are taking the audience in and considering the audience like another scene partner in a way, then it's like so engaging, and I think that same concept is sort of related to what you're talking about with releasing music as well.
Yeah, I mean, even just the bow you take at the end, right? Like it's so easy to think, okay, this bow is for me, like, yes, thank you, I'm so good, I know, the roses, right? It's really easy to fall into that, because like, you plan it, and now the lead role person comes out at the end, and yay, in a way, great, yeah, be celebrated, right? But that originally, the idea of the bow originally comes from saying thank you to people for even being there in the first place, right?
That's right.
And so it's so important that we have in mind the art is not for us. Ultimately, in the end, we make something that's true to us, that expresses our real life from our perspective, but that is to teach others, or that is to impact others in some sort of, to make them think, right? Or yeah, you can have whatever purpose you want, but that's, for me, I think, the most important thing. That's what makes it all worthwhile. Otherwise, I think you run out of steam, because you kind of lose interest over a while if it's just for you.
That's right.
Certainly other people aren't going to be really wanting to work with you, aren't going to be really wanting to watch it, listen to it all the time, if it's just for you.
So does that kind of tie into like advice you would recommend ignoring as well? Like,
yeah, I guess I would
Sure.
Ignore advice about people that say, like, don't sell out. that's a really crazy philosophy. You know, you can be misconstrued to believe that selling out is doing something mainstream, is
Yeah.
doing something that a lot of people are going to like, right? And yeah, I think there's something to be said about, especially writing pop music. It's a challenge when you're writing lyrics and you're writing songs. You have to keep in mind that other people are going to listen to it eventually. You know, you want it to be something that's for them. While at the same time, if you only think about that, you will not write a good song.
It still
Absolutely
has to
not.
be an expression of you.
Yes, you will
Right.
never. Yeah, if you're like question, because it becomes, it's really self-doubt then, and you're putting in all sorts of self-doubt because you think, oh, but people probably want to see this. So there's a tricky balance of doing what you know feels good, what works right for you, and still doing it in a way that serves other people that you know other people will probably enjoy too. Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're selling out just because you're paying attention.
Interesting.
Give and take.
Yeah, I like that. Just because you're paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. It's like in
Um,
Meisner acting, you know, like back and forth. That was so hard for me at first when I did Meisner acting technique in
yeah.
college. And this is a side note, but because I was so programmed in, I think, of doing, you know, musical theater for so long too. Like, if, you know, read these lines, say these things, walk here on the stage, and now make some people laugh by doing this funny move. And it was very surface. It wasn't really getting deep because I wasn't paying attention to
Sure.
what was happening over there. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
this
think
one,
that's very true. I like that you tied it back into acting.
it is all connected. So,
It is. It really is.
yeah.
Okay, we're almost out of time, but we're gonna fit in the last question, which
Okay.
is my favorite question.
Okay.
So, who is someone that is not in your network that you wish was, and how would you go about getting them into your network?
Oof. All right. Yeah. I think probably a social media manager is someone that I would want, or someone like a Scooter Braun, like, who is, you know, has got like his insight sort of about the whole industry, working with different artists. So I guess my way of getting at that would be going to, you know, Scooter Braun's page, finding what he does, what he likes, right? As an example here,
Yeah.
and learning, just studying, right, about Scooter Braun, right, knowing what he likes, where he lives, what type of area he is in, so that potentially you could run into him, right? But not to send, oh, I see him, there he is, hi Scooter. That's not, you
Right.
know, this is all just an example too, but
Sure, yeah.
I think, yeah, like the way I would go about it is do that research and then sort of find a way to place yourself in that world already, for them, so that, you know, it might mean marketing directly to them. Even, like, I've heard of people doing that, like sending Instagram ads to a certain like area that you're targeting, like the headquarters of Warner Bros. It's kind of crazy things like that. I haven't tried that, but
Interesting.
yeah, just knowing what you're looking for and how you can fit into that picture for that.
Well, it's that specificity. I think it goes back to what you said at the very beginning about knowing what you want and then knowing like what questions to ask. You know, if you know where you're going and you know what your goal is, then being specific about, you know, who you're reaching out to and who you're collaborating with and what questions you're asking is really helpful.
Yeah, totally agree.
Well, we're just about out of time, but thank you very much for joining us today. It was such a pleasure to see you again. I haven't seen you in like a while.
Yeah, really. Thank you. No, it's been an honor to be on here. Thank you. I love what you're doing. I always want to support you. So
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
For anyone watching, really quick before we go, if you want to find Jameson, he has some amazing music and is just an awesome artist. And so he's all over social media, Instagram and Twitter at Jameson Tabor, and then YouTube Jameson Tabor. And then you're also on Spotify, right?
Yeah.
Just search Jameson Tabor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again for joining us. It was such a pleasure.
Of course. Thank you, Kelsey.
All right, take care, Jameson.
Anyway, you're welcome.
Okay, well, that's our episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that everyone has a really fabulous weekend. And we will see you next week. Happy Juneteenth.